Recording. So, welcome everybody to the Advisory Committee meeting of November 17, 2025. We have a full schedule. Let a couple more people in. Welcome to all our guests, and welcome to past members Stephen Reeders and Marcus Penzel. Welcome back.
Thanks.
So we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing 4 or 5 warrant articles tonight, and I'll give you an explanation before we hit each one. The warrant articles are warrant article 9, which is the renter's handbook, which has come back to us in a new version. Warrant article 18, where we will hear, I believe, from a member of the select board who has a different proposal. Warrant article 8 on the lighting, where we're being asked to reconsider our recommendation of referral. Warrant article 7 on the Clark Road, which has nothing new or controversial in it, but some minor changes, and we just need to approve them. And then a possibility of warrant article 19, the 25th Amendment, because a last minute amendment came in today to vote to lay this motion on the table. And I want to take that up either tonight or possibly get a feeling from the committee, and we'll take it up on Wednesday night when we're at the high school. So we're in for, I think, a bit of an evening. To quote someone previously, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night. And we will start with warrant article 9, which is the renter's handbook. And Alec, I'm going to turn it over to you to, actually, before I do that, we need to go to public comment. So if there are any members of the public who are not petitioners, because we're going to hit the petitioners when we get to your warrant article, but if there are any members of the public who wish to make a statement right now, put your name in the chat and David Mark will call on you. And for those people who just joined us, if you're a member of the public and wish to make a comment here at the beginning of the meeting, put your name in the chat. Going once,
It's empty.
going twice, going 3 times. Very good. We are closing off the public comment section. And as I said, Alec Lebovitz, I'm turning it over to you to explain to us exactly what is going on.
Thanks, Harry. I'll try and be very brief here. It's a fairly simple change to the version of warrant article 9 that this committee took up previously. After fruitful discussions with a number of the Brookline constables, the petitioners have amended that motion to clarify that compliance with the notification provision of warrant article 9 by Brookline constables is not mandatory. We made this change to allay certain concerns about potential enforcement actions facing the constables. And also, after, as I mentioned, fruitful discussions, that included commitments that the constables were willing to comply with this voluntarily. So we feel this is a good compromise. It preserves the intent and substance of the article while allaying some of the concerns from the constables. And the select board did take up this motion on last Friday, and they did vote 4-0 to recommend favorable action, and have dropped, my understanding, is their substitute motion, which folks will recall we debated with select board member Paul Warren a couple weeks ago. So the motion before us tonight would bring us, would unify us with the select board's motion and the petitioner's motion, should we choose to proceed with it. And I would also just highlight I did have a discussion with Neil Gordon as well about another small amendment that we were comfortable accepting. That was not included in the select board's consideration on Friday, but it is included in what the petitioners plan to move now. And that's in addition to the small addition to the notification provision, as I mentioned, is a small change to in the definition section, the definition of agent of the town. And what we agreed to with Mr. Gordon was adding after of the town in that definition, just the phrase acting in their official capacity. And this is to provide some clarity that would prevent some kind of legal challenge being brought against a constable who might have another official role with the town in their delivery of a notice. So you wouldn't run into a situation where, say, a constable who is also a member of the advisory committee could be expected to comply mandatorily with the notification provision as an advisory committee member. So this rectifies that and ensures that the original amendment we made to make compliance by the constables voluntary, the intent and outcome of the new motion. And yeah, I think that's it. It's pretty straightforward change, as I mentioned.
Yeah, there you go.
Alec, do you have I know it's a minor change, this acting in their official capacity.
Mhm.
Do you have a copy or something that has that in it?
I do.
So I'm going to make you a co-host, and if you could just share it so we could see
Absolutely.
and actually also show us what the select board and you have agreed to in a change.
Yeah.
So
Will
you
do.
now have co-host privileges.
Thank you very much, Harry. All right. Can everyone see that? I'll make it a little bigger. Is that easier?
Yes.
So the change I mentioned that Mr. Gordon proposed and the petitioners have accepted is this amendment here to the definition of agent of the town. As I mentioned, just clarifying that it is the fit when these people are acting in their official capacity. The change that the select board considered and agreed with was this addition to section 8.40.4, which states that Brookline constables shall be exempt from mandatory compliance with this provision. And while I have this shared, I'd also note that the moderator has noted some scrivener's corrections that need to be made to the numbering of the sections that just reflect some version control. So these section names, 3.12b.3 and 3.12b, the repetition here will be corrected from the podium. I've been told to read section 8.40.5 here and 8.40.6 here to unify the numbering in this draft.
Thank you. Susan, you're the chairman of this committee. Do you have anything you wish to add?
Yes, actually, I do support the ultimate provisions, but this is actually the first I've heard about the change to the definition. And I have a suggestion because I don't think that the one proposed is adequate because it doesn't define what official capacity can mean being a member of the AC. I think what you really want to say is acting in their capacity as an agent of the town. Any employee, agent, or elected or appointed official of the town acting in their, you can say, in their official capacity as an agent of the town. Because if you're a member of the advisory committee, you are acting in an official capacity. It's simply a different official capacity. If you want to specify that it only applies to a constable acting as a constable, then you really want to do more than simply say acting in their official capacity. If you have a constable like Neil, who's also a town meeting member and is also an advisory committee member, they have multiple official capacities, and you don't want all of them to be implicated. So I think that you probably want to specify. You can say acting in their official capacity as an agent of the town as defined herein, or something like that.
That's still kind of vague, Susan. Could we just say constable?
Well, agent of the town defines more than constables.
Yes, but if we specifically say constable, that should solve it.
I'm certainly, I think we're flexible on the wording of the solution here as long as we get to that clarifying fix. I am a little concerned about kind of a self-referential definition. If we're defining agent of the town, including agent of the town in that definition, does worry me somewhat.
Well, you're limiting it though to agents of the town, right? That's your intention.
Yes.
So you should be explicit about that, because otherwise it becomes vague. What
Right.
office, what official capacity?
So before we go to questions, and we will discuss this in our questions, I'm going to start because I'm the chairman and
Can
I
I,
get
can I get a two-finger in first, if you don't mind, Harry?
sure.
Okay, so let me just hypothetically say, under the current draft, it would be legal for a landlord to call a member of the advisory committee, right, and ask them to serve a notice to quit, because any disinterested adult can do that. That member of the advisory committee, under the current language, would be bound by definition and would be obligated to deliver a copy of the statement of tenant rights and resources, as I read it. Now, maybe that's okay, right? But excluding Neil Gordon or Joe Figler, who serves on the Police Commissioners Advisory Committee, excluding us as constables, doesn't, in the language that's there, exclude us in any other capacity. And that's what that's all that we're trying to solve.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, Mr. Gordon was my grandfather, Alec.
Duly noted.
So I have a different question, which may have just been partially answered, but the previous select board version simply took out the delivery thing, which I thought was a very clean solution, if whether one agrees with it or not. You've kept the delivery thing in, which regards an agent of the town of Brookline giving a notice to quit or being involved in an eviction proceeding, and then excluded the constables. So my question is, who does it include? Who would ever be subject to this delivery section?
Yeah, it's a great question, Harry. And the primary group would be DPH inspectors, who are occasionally required to deliver notices related to orders to vacate when properties have been condemned.
Okay, thank you. So David, Mark, take it away and let's go through the list.
Okay, Linda.
Thanks, David, Mark. My question is, have we heard from the other constables whom we heard from the first night we discussed this, and are they on board with the current version that the select board adopted?
Yeah, so this compromise version was developed in conjunction with discussions between the petitioners, Neil Gordon, Regina Frawley, and Joe Figler. I don't see Joe on the call, but I believe Regina's here if you'd like to hear from her. But this was the compromise that we agreed was the best path forward together.
Okay, thank you.
Neil Gordon, did you already make your point or do you
I'm
have another
done,
one?
thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. This change where the constables are now voluntarily doing this seems to gut the whole point of this, that the tenant would get a copy of something showing what their options are. And now it's if they feel like it. Would it be simpler to mandate that the landlord who wants to evict the person has to be the one to give it to the tenant rather than have a voluntary constables can do it if they feel like it type of thing. Not that it's within scope, but just as a concept.
I think conceptually there's definitely a case to be made there. What that unfortunately takes us back to is the legal issue that we've had to navigate in bringing this forward, which is that we've been advised by town council that we cannot require the landlord to serve as the noticing agent in these cases because that infringes on state law that limits municipalities' ability to legislate or regulate civil relationships between tenants and landlords. So in an ideal world, that would be, I think, the design that we would take, the design approach. But, we are not living in an ideal world and we're trying to navigate the legal issues as best we can. I will note the petitioners are comfortable with this. And that comes from the fact that the constables have agreed, A, I think, with the premise of the article and the intent behind it. And B, have said they would be happy to voluntarily comply. There are, I think accountability measures built in. The constables are elected officials. Court filings like these are public. Any interested party can check the filings and see who is complying and who is not. To an extent, I think democratic accountability here makes maybe more sense than incidentally putting a town department in a position where they need to enforce this kind of compliance against a town constable. That wasn't really something we saw as an ideal outcome. And our thanks to the constables who raised that as an issue. I think that was a clarifying concern.
Okay, thank you. Harry, that's it. There's nobody else in the chat.
Okay, so what I'm gonna suggest here is that we take this in steps. Since the advisory committee has given favorable action to something that doesn't kind of exist anymore because the petitioners and the select board have moved on to something else. I think the way I need to start is a motion to reconsider our previous decision. And once we do that, we can take a motion for favorable action on, I assume, what the petitioner is proposing and what the select board has done. And then we can take any amendments anyone might wish to propose on changing, for instance, the definitions. So, Susan?
Right, I will move to reconsider, but just to clarify, the select board vote did not include this definition change, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So presumably, and we now have another constable here. Presumably then, Alec, I guess we would, assuming we vote to reconsider, I would take a motion from you on whatever your package is, however many changes it has, and then any amendments. So do I have a second on the motion to reconsider?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. So let me share my screen. Okay, so we have a motion to reconsider the previous AC vote on the renter's handbook. Michael Berger, are you here? Nay. Harry Boers?
Yes.
Cliff Brown?
Yes.
Anthony Buono?
Yes.
Elise Couture Stone?
Yes.
John Doggett?
Yes.
David Goldstein?
Yes.
Yes.
Neil Gordon?
Yes.
Susan Granoff?
Yes.
Perry Grossman?
Yes.
Kelly Hadebeck?
Yes.
Elisa Jonas?
Yes.
Janice Kahn?
Yes.
Brian Ladd,
Yes.
Alec Lebovitz.
Yes.
Carol Levin,
Yes.
Liz Linda.
Might be
Don't think-
late.
Okay, Pam Lodish. Don't think she's here. Jocelyn Murphy,
Yes.
Danelle O'Neill,
Yes.
Linda Olson Pelkey,
Yes.
Fran Perla.
Yes.
David Pollock, I think, is going to be late. Carlos Ridwejo,
He put
He
yes.
said yes.
in the chat.
okay. Margaret,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
and Christine.
Yes.
So by a vote of 23 to 0, we have moved to reconsider. Let me stop sharing. So I am now up for motions. Alec, I'll recognize you.
So just to clarify, would your preference be to vote on the select board motion first and then take a separate vote on amendments?
No, I'm gonna
One vote?
I'm gonna take I'm gonna take the motion. I'll take the motion. It will have discussion and we'll also have, well, we've already been through discussion. I'll take the motion, then if anyone wants to propose amendments
Okay.
to the main motion, and then what we would do is we would move on, we would vote on those amendments first, and then whatever the final package looks like, vote on that.
So the base vote is on the motion that the AC passed at our last meeting, and then we will be amending that? Is that what you're saying?
No. We just took away what the AC voted. We
Okay,
voted
so,
to
but there's nothing
reconsider.
on the table now.
There's nothing on the table, and I'm opening it up
Okay,
for a motion, which I was presuming that the petitioner would make, to propose whatever he's proposing, either what the select board voted for the other night, or what the select board voted for the other night, plus whatever addition he has made as petitioner.
And in that case, Harry, I'd be happy to move the version that I just screen shared, the two changes being the insertion of the constable-related provision in section 844, which was the version the select board voted on, and it additionally including the amendment to the definition of agent of the town, language acting in their official capacity at the end of that definition.
I'll second that and note that official capacity language is sufficient for me.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Does anyone wish to do any amendments?
okay.
Susan?
I just have a question. Alec, can you repeat again, what is the purpose of the change to the definition of agent of the town? What is the concern?
The purpose is to clarify that when a person who is a constable who also holds other positions that could meet the existing definition of agent of the town, that it is clarified that in their delivery of a notice to quit or other eviction-related proceeding notice, that they are acting in their official capacity as a constable and not in the capacity as, say, a town meeting member or advisory committee member, and therefore clarifying that they are exempt from mandatory compliance with the notification provision.
Okay, but all you're adding is the words acting in their official capacity? Is that what your proposal is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but then it doesn't do what you want it to do, because they have multiple official capacities. If they're a member of the AC, that's a different official capacity. This doesn't eliminate that.
But I think, Susan, the idea here behind this amendment is there's nothing included in the official capacity of an advisory committee member or a town meeting member that in any way relates to being a noticing agent in an eviction proceeding, whereas constables, that is very much part of their official duties and capacity, and therefore that would prevent there from being a challenge brought to say, Neil delivering a notice and a litigant saying, well, he's an advisory committee member, he's an agent of the town, why didn't he deliver the notice?
Yeah.
This would clarify.
Okay.
Then he
Yeah.
could cite, well, that's not part of my official capacity as an AC member, but it is
Yeah.
part of my capacity as a constable.
The concern is that without the clarifying language, coincidental service on the advisory committee or the police commissioner's advisory committee or any other board committee or commission, right, would say, well, you are an agent of the town as an elected official, and you are serving. And this, I think, is the hypotheticals could go on forever, but this is sufficient for me to say, if I'm serving something as a constable, I'm not serving it as a member of the advisory committee.
Okay. Do we want to say specified official capacity?
Specified where?
If you're distinguishing between an advisory committee because you have certain specified responsibilities, you're trying to distinguish that from the specified obligations you have as a constable.
Understood. I mean, I think it's sufficient for my purposes that we specifically excluded, recognize now that I'm not engaged by the town to serve any eviction related notice. That's not happened yet.
And I would just add to that the bylaws pretty clearly set forth the official responsibilities of the advisory committee, and I think numerous other categories that will fall under this definition of agent of the town. So I feel fairly confident that being the case, additional clarification here is not needed.
Okay.
All right, Kelly Hardebeck.
Thank you. Apologies for my lack of voice. My question, maybe I should type it.
Kelly, we've lost you.
Sorry. I apologize. I have no voice left.
You want to write it in the chat?
Has this language been reviewed by town council? And that's the question, and I would note, Alec, I'll certainly accept your answer, but town council is on the call.
He may have before the select board. I'm actually not sure. So I'd welcome him to weigh in.
Mr. Callahan.
Good evening. I have not seen it. I've been listening along. I don't think there's any concern that I have. This official capacity issue about, whether they're in the capacity of a constable or an AC member, I don't think that can really be addressed by the definition. It would be pretty fact intensive to see, on whose basis they were retained and for what purpose. So I'm not terribly concerned about these amendments, but I defer to the wishes of the AC about how they want the warrant article to be drafted, but it's not a concern of mine.
Thank you.
Okay, Henry, we have a constable who has her hand up.
Yes. Regina?
Oh, thank you. Just, I'm wondering why you couldn't say process servers, and that would cover any of the employees, any of the agents, including constables. It's generic and just a thought.
Just so I understand, so you would have it say acting in their official capacity as a process server?
It's a thought, it's a suggestion.
Yep, okay, I just want to make sure I understood the suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
That's out there. If any AC member wishes to move it,
I would move it.
Second it.
that's Elisa.
Mhm.
So we have a motion and a second to amend the acting in their official capacity by adding as a process server.
And I would just note, I have no concerns with the addition of that language and would actually support that amendment.
Okay, so if you're willing to accept it as a friendly amendment, why don't we just add it on?
So I'll then amend the motion that I had offered previously, Harry, to reflect that addition to the agent of the town definition. So now the inserted language would read at the end after town, quote, acting in their official capacity as a process server.
Okay. Okay. I have written that down. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, everybody. So I think we're ready to go to a motion which has already been moved and seconded. So let me share my screen and make some changes. So handbook motion to recommend as supported by the select board with the addition in section 8.40, adding at the end.
And I just posted the new language in the chat, Harry, if that's helpful.
So let me see if I can find the chat.
And yes, Linda, the moderator did review this language and did rule it within scope.
Control C. V. So this is a motion for favorable action on the version of WA9 supported by the select board with the addition in section 8.40.4 adding at the end, acting in their official capacity as a process server. I am
And does this
assuming
also
Michael.
include the changes to the numbering that the Scrivener errors that Alec mentioned?
Well,
It did not,
it
because the
doesn't-
moderator. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Said he would do it on his own.
Okay, it doesn't, right, it doesn't have to. I just wanted to clarify.
The moderator is still going to have to do some affirmative action. Michael Berger, not here. Harry Boers,
Yes.
Cliff Brown,
Yes.
Anthony Bono,
Yes.
Elise,
Yes.
John Doggett,
Yes.
David Mark,
Yes.
Neil Gordon,
Yes.
Susan Granoff,
Yes,
Perry Grossman,
Yes.
Kelly Hadebeck,
Yes.
Elisa Jonas,
Yes.
Janice Kahn,
Yes.
Brian Ladd,
Yes.
Alec Lebovitz,
Abstain.
Carol Levin,
Yes.
Liz Linder, not here yet. Pam Lotus, not here. Jocelyn Murphy,
Yes.
Danelle O'Neill,
Yes.
Linda Olson Pelkey,
Yes.
Fran Perler,
Yes.
David Pollock, not here yet. Carlos Ridwejo,
Carlos says yes in chat.
thank you. Margaret,
Yes.
Lee Selwyn,
Yes.
Chris Westfall,
Abstain.
abstained. So by a vote of 21 in favor, no opposed, and 2 abstentions, we have now made a new recommendation for warrant Article 9. Thank you, everybody. And we shall now move on, I think. Now, let me see. Is Michael Rubenstein here?
I don't see that he's here yet. I will
Right.
say, our subcommittee took this up and made the original recommendation for the advisory committee vote. And I have to speak to it at town meeting. So I think I'm fairly familiar with it and the concerns that came from Select Board Member Rubenstein, as well as concerns that we had. And I have, like the rest of you, the memo that he sent us, which is kind of clear. I'd be happy to speak to it until he gets here. I also see Paul Warren is here, so he may want to chime in if you want to keep this moving along.
Okay, so Harry, why don't you start?
Okay, so briefly, I'll just say that this is a resolution that Heather Hamilton brought to us. Her concern was that there are meetings that are already being recorded, but for whatever reason aren't getting posted up to the town site where people can find them. As Neil Gordon had said earlier, in its simplest form, what this really means is we want to get things out of the shadows and get them daylighted, which is sort of what she wants to do, and we all want to do. Ultimately, there's an interest in having sort of a technological fix where this would happen automatically, which is easier said than done, and that is not specified in this resolution, nor should it be really. But it does say pretty clearly from the standpoint of town meeting that we would like to get these things posted so that people can find them. In the select board's motion, their wording is a bit different than ours. That's one of the hazards of offering the first motion, I suppose. However, they had, and they still do, unless they revote it, they have the phrase bump, bump, bump. Guidelines specified by, so that this will be done according to guidelines specified by the select board or its designee. So what that does in essence is, in a way, grant agency to the select board in this warrant article. And it can be read or misread, I suppose, in 2 directions, actually. One is that it is the executive branch instructing the legislative branch, which it can't really do. And keep in mind that there are plenty of board committees, commissions that are appointed by the duly elected moderator. So it's sort of a separation of executive and legislative branch. It can also be read in the opposite direction, in that it is town meeting or the legislative branch trying to instruct the select board, and we can't instruct the select board. We can ask the select board, and we have before in resolutions posed it as a question and asked if the select board would do something. And certainly we could rewrite it to do that. However, everyone is really of the same mind, essentially. We all want to get the same thing basically done. Any sort of resolution shouldn't be so vague as that you don't understand what it is that you want. I think we all understand what it is we want. And it shouldn't be too prescriptive that you paint yourself into a corner, or don't allow latitude to those who are really going to have to enact it. So what is now coming before us is essentially that same language out of the select board, but the last line no longer refers directly to the select board. And what it says is published according to established guidelines and procedures. The select board has some that it has done on the executive side, It has a handbook, and it tells pretty clearly how you can quickly post these recordings up online. And it's probably a good guide for whether you're legislative or an executive appointee. These guidelines may change over time, or they may be supplanted, or there may be something in addition to it. Maybe the moderator would want us to do something in addition. So to an extent, this line may be somewhat aspirational, but it also points to the issue of, yeah, we would kind of like to have some level of standardization and some place where everybody can go and find it and not have to look in every little corner. In the short term, there's ways to do that that are not onerous, and a longer term solution that may be technological is not something that we should be prescribing in any particular detail, and this does not. Right now, there are two versions. My guess is when it goes to town meeting would love for us to have a single version. We don't seem to be arguing about the intent. And I see Michael Rubenstein is here, so he can better discuss his language and the motion that he's bringing forward, which is neither the advisory committee nor the select boards at this point.
Okay. So before you go, Michael, Harry, am I clear that what Michael is now going to talk about has not been discussed by the subcommittee?
It has
Correct.
not. That is
Okay.
correct. It has not
Thank
been
you.
right. So we have no recommendation on this newest language.
Okay. And Michael, it's my understanding that the select board is actually going to make a decision tomorrow night on this. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, following the actions of the advisory committee. Now,
Okay.
you let me know when I should proceed.
You may proceed. I have given you co-host privileges, so if you have something you wish to share,
Right.
feel free.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I am just bringing up my desktop. Okay, give me 1 second and bringing up this. Okay. And sharing. Great. Okay. Can everybody see my
Yes.
deck? Great.
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to go through a few slides and arguments. Thank you very much, Harry, for that introduction, and thank you for your coordination to come up with these three different options before the select board. So we have before us the advisory committee version, the select board version, and this third proposal. What I'm going to do through the course of the next few minutes, I am going to argue for the select board version, and then speak to the new proposal relative to that. Let me start here. And as Harry said, I think that there is a general consensus of what we are all seeking. And I really want to speak to this point of standardization, because standardization is I believe, an underutilized aspect to what we can do as a public service. Standardization enhances transparency. It makes the information that we provide easier to navigate, and in particular, the access to recording videos suffers at the moment from a lack of standardization, which is the problem that we're trying to correct. And I will say that across all of the public bodies, whether they are select board appointed or elected or appointed through other parts of our government, that residents really expect consistency across all of our public bodies. There are a few principles that I would like to talk about in terms of what makes useful website design. The first being that website design should really be optimized for its users, the consumers of the media. And this really goes to the idea that while you may only post something once, it will typically be read multiple times, and spending a little more time to make sure that the posting is done well so that users can more easily access it provides a better experience for users. Secondly, users will expect consistent experiences, so that if they're trying to find, for example, a video from one committee, they expect to be able to have the same experience in searching for that video as they do from any other committee. And by creating guidelines, we ensure consistency across all of those similar operations. Currently, and this I think is one of the reasons why this warrant article was brought forward in the first place, there are at least 3 different ways that meeting recordings are posted. We post them using the button, like the meeting media button within the Agenda Center. There are some committees, including the advisory committee, that have dedicated web pages for their recordings. And there are also some committees that include recording links in their minutes, which are themselves associated with the meetings in which the minutes are approved, as opposed to the meeting minutes, the minutes that the meetings that the minutes apply to. So starting with the first 2, we have the differences that are really outlined here. The advisory committee version says specifically posting to civic clerk or the current town website, whereas the select board version says made available to the public in a convenient and consistent manner. So the advisory version actually has one very specific technical option, and then a catch-all that basically covers all the different mechanisms that people are using for the town's for posting videos. There's a slight clarification in the select board version that I don't believe is under dispute about when the posting has to occur, and the select board is a little bit more precise in saying 10 days after the meeting ends, as opposed to within 10 days of the meeting, just to handle the case where meetings may continue over time. The third, which is the question that Harry really raised, Harry Bors, about what the guidelines are for posting. And the select board version says specifically published according to guidelines specified by the select board or its designee. And note that this is just a requirement for how the recordings are accessed. There is no prescription here as to what the content is or how it's created, or even in fact whether a recording is made at all. It is just a matter of standardizing access and providing consistency there. Okay, so to distinguish between the select board version and the proposal, as Harry mentioned before, the only difference is in the third bullet here, which makes the adds a little ambiguity into the established guidelines, and allows different potentially different branches of government to establish different guidelines. I think that's highly unlikely, but it is certainly allowed. And to the points that Harry made about the separation of powers, as I said before, we're only trying to standardize access. We're not trying to standardize content or, in fact, whether or not recordings are made. And we already have standardization in several places across the different branches of government. For example, we have already agreed that the Agenda Center is used by all public bodies, the advisory committee, the school committee, the library trustees, all the select board appointed committees and the select board itself all use the agenda center. And that standardization is very helpful when people are trying to get access to agendas and find out what public meetings are being held. And in another example of standardization, we actually have in our list of public bodies, all of the public bodies listed in one place. And there's no distinction within those public bodies of whether those public bodies are part of our legislative branch, whether they're appointed by the select board, or whether they're appointed by other elected bodies. So there isn't a lot. There are many places within the website where the distinctions between branches aren't reflected in the user interface. The reason that I'm advocating for the select board version specifically is to provide that public-facing consistency, to provide standard guidelines so that everybody can go to the same place, and also to provide a mechanism in which this process can adapt to changes to the underlying technology. We do expect technology to change over time. Websites get refreshed. There may be changes to the underlying technology. There are new technologies being adapted. And by having the guidelines in a central location, whether it's managed by the select board or some other body, it allows those guidelines to be kept in sync with the website itself, and allows training to be more efficient for those staff members who are responsible for implementing these guidelines. So in summary, the select board version strengthens transparency for users, guarantees consistency, respects the separation of powers, and improves public access. I would just make one more point to one of the last details that Harry raised in terms of the town meeting potentially directing the select board inappropriately. And I would say that in a number of cases, though I understand resolutions are not the same as other types of warrant articles, but our legislative branch certainly forms bylaws and gives direction to the select board in terms of budget. Some of those bylaws, for example, instruct the select board to create other public bodies, a most recent one being the Council for Youth. So I am less concerned about bringing this to town meeting to take a vote for the entirety of town government to follow consistent guidelines. Now, to the third proposal and the distinctions between the select board version and the proposal. If the advisory committee is significantly concerned about about having the ability to either follow its current practice or to establish its own guidelines, the third version would certainly, the third proposal, the new proposal, would certainly be an improvement over the current state of affairs, and I would certainly support that on the ground, on the floor of town meeting, and I'm sure the select board would as well. But if we have the opportunity to take the step of establishing guidelines that can help the town's operations and help the user experience, I believe that we as a town government should provide that experience for our users. And I will leave it at there and for your consideration. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I'm happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you. I think you can stop the share. Great. So the way I'm thinking of proceeding, we had previously approved our original language in warrant article 18 by a vote of 24-0-1. So I'm going to open it up to comments. And at the end of the comments, I would be looking for a motion to reconsider. If there is no motion to reconsider, or should that motion fail, then we've already done our work. We have our original proposal. If the motion to reconsider passes, then we're free to start all over again and propose either the select board version or the proposal that Michael has brought to us tonight that veers a little off from the select board version. So David Mark, let's open it up to Selectman Paul Warren.
Hi, thank you. I hadn't intended to speak, but this is the first time I've actually attended an AC meeting on this subject, and I can see the complexity that is before us for a resolution. We have 3 versions. It would be really fantastic if we had one version going before a town meeting. So before you got to the point where you voted to whether you're going to reconsider or not, I thought I'd just a quick comment from my perspective alone. This isn't any other member of the select board. I think Michael makes a reasonably good point about standardization. It's not about control, but I can certainly see, and Bernard actually spoke to this the other night, this issue of violating kind of church and state, right? We should stay within our lane. And I think the language that says, according to guidelines specify the select board, its designee, I could see where that could cause some concern for advisory. And I don't think we've heard from the school committee yet. They also publish videos as well. I want to offer a suggestion in the hope of seeing if we can come together. Instead of saying that the guidelines as published according to the select board's designee, if we said something like agreed to by the select board, school committee, and advisory committee. Remember, this is a resolution. We're supposed to be working together. It's good for our constituents and the public to be able to have standardization. But I happen to agree that maybe it's the select board shouldn't be the one solely dictating what that standardization is. I think we should work together. The 3 primary public bodies, school committee, advisory, and select board. Let's work together to figure out what those standards are, and then everybody agrees to it. If they have to be changed in the future, they change them. That would be my suggestion. Be great to have one version. Thank you.
Thank you so much. David Mark, I'm turning it over to you. Please note that Janice Kahn is added her name to the comment queue.
Well, her name's not in the chat. It's just a raised hand, so that really doesn't count.
Now it's in the chat.
But Paul, I just want to point out that there are some committees appointed by the moderator, so you might want to add that as well. First up is Neil Gordon.
Yeah, thank you. So just a reminder, I chair the Administration and Finance Subcommittee. This particular article sailed through with modest clarification to the language as brought by the petitioner. It was unanimously passed. It sailed through the advisory committee unanimously without amendment and without controversy. This wasn't complicated, right? And it wasn't broken. And the advisory committee remains not broken. I want 2 comments on the presentation, much of which, I agree with, but I find to be, in the weeds of how to, we're not looking for best practices. I think Harry Bohr said it well. We're taking this out of the dark into the light. That's the short version. And I think everybody understands that, and everybody will do their best to implement it that way. As I said, it's not complicated, but I'll two comments. This is not primarily why the article was brought in the first place. It was not to provide a consistent single place. It was to get out of the dark and into the light. I've had many conversations with Heather about this. Would you prefer it that way? Sure. It is not a primary reason why she brought it in the first place. Secondly, and I have to say this with all due respect, instructing the select board is the legislature's job. That is not a two-way street. That's not a two-way street. I won't say it the third time. This was not complicated when it was petitioned, when it was reviewed by the Administration and Finance Subcommittee, or when it came to town meeting, to the advisory committee, and was unanimously recommended for favorable approval. It became complicated when the select board, I think in good faith and inadvertently and in a way unthinking, sort of crossed over in exceeding its authority over the school committee, the library trustees, the advisory committee, its subcommittees, and various other appointed committees not directly under the control of the select board, right? Bring this to town meeting in the form that was approved by the Administration and Finance Committee and recommended by the full advisory committee without controversy. Everybody understands. And if the select board wants to present an ideal platform to implement this, everybody will jump on board. We've spent way too much time trying to make better something that is not broken. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Levin.
Hi. I have to say, I appreciated the clarity of what we originally voted on. And I think that clarity is important. And I have to think about my experience on the Pierce School Building Committee, which is truly a hybrid committee of both town officials and school committee officials, but it is incredibly difficult to find those recordings, just like it's incredibly difficult to get the recordings on a timely basis from the building commission, excuse me. So I did not hear a persuasive argument as to why we should be moving off of our previously voted and approved version of this warrant article. And I think it's especially important, as I said, for things like the Pierce School Building Committee and other specially appointed committees that are hybrid between the school and the select board, to make sure that there's no question that these have to be on the civic website instead of hidden away in some committee's website, which is certainly the case with the Pierce School Building Committee's recordings. Thank you.
Janice, you don't want to say anything anymore? Okay, Harry, let's see. Yeah, Harry, that's it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do first is ask if any member of the advisory committee wishes to put forth a motion to reconsider our previous decision.
Harry Boris has a comment.
Sure. Well, I'll do it as part of that. I'm willing to put forward a motion for reconsideration. If that fails, we are where we are. If it passes, then I'm willing to also take this other version and put that on the table for a vote. I would just briefly say that I think everyone is saying yes. And when we get to the floor of town meeting would rather discuss that than hear a back and forth about what the best way to say yes is. I don't think there's any utility in making this more complicated by changing language that says the school committee, the advisory. I see no utility in that. I think there is some utility in reminding people that working towards some level of standardization, whatever that might mean, can be a good thing, but I don't think this needs to specifically grant agency to the select board in order to do so. So given all of that, I would be willing to support this third version. And if we decide to revisit our vote, I'll offer that as a motion. And if not, then we have what we have.
So you're offering a motion to reconsider?
I am.
And I'll second
Okay,
that motion, Harry.
And Alex seconds it. We have a question from Linda Olson-Pelkey.
Yeah, what does the original petitioner have to say about all of this? Which version do they like?
I don't believe we've ever seen the original petitioner. Correct
Yeah,
me,
we
Harry,
did.
if
She
I'm
came
wrong.
once.
Sure we did.
Did you? Okay.
So no one has an answer to that question, apparently.
I would
say
only say
definitively.
that several of us have spoken to her, and I am not sure that we've gotten consistent answers to that question from her. So I'm not sure that any one person's answer would be dispositive.
The version that the petitioner agreed to in a public meeting is the version that was recommended by the advisory committee.
And so regardless of their position, I mean, are we really going to have 3 different versions? Or 2 different versions at town meeting? So the select board has the intent to bring a different version?
No.
No.
They already have a different version. There are currently 2 separate versions, a select board version and an advisory committee version. And those are what are going to get, at this point, debated at town meeting.
No. Maybe.
Maybe.
So
and right now, we can decide whether we want to take this 3rd version with the hopes that the select board adopts that as well, as Paul Warren seems to think so, but he can only speak about, not for, I think.
The select board at its most recent meeting on last Friday was going to reconsider the article, and they decided not to, pending the outcome. They wanted to hear from advisory first. I think there was some discussion without a vote, and some views expressed by the chair over the prescriptive ceding to the select board of language, and he specifically mentioned separation of powers. I don't think that it is likely that we have 3 versions coming to town meeting, right? What we know is that the petitioner and the advisory committee have agreed on the motion that's the current recommendation, and that will be moved as the primary motion unless the petitioner decides to move some other motion, whatever that motion might be. Petitioner's able to, she's not a town meeting member, but can ask that motion be moved. If we stay with our original motion and that petitioner's motion is moved, and the select board on Tuesday or Wednesday, as the case may be, reconsiders, we could have one motion come to town meeting, which I think would be a good move by the select board. As I said, and I'll only repeat once, this is not broken, right? And I don't think requires compromise.
Dennis Kahn?
Yes, every time Neil speaks, it makes me put my hand back off because I agree with Neil. And I don't honestly understand why the select board decided to do, despite Michael's very clear explanation, it still seems this is a resolution. This is where we are now. The petitioner seemed in agreement with us. We had a very strong opinion. I agree with Harry Bors also that, you know, the 3rd version would be okay if that's where we end up. But honestly, I think we should just stick with what we have and bring it to town meeting.
Okay, Paul Warren, you have your hand raised.
You know, wait a minute. I have a comment. Paul, we're doing this as a favor to you because this is not the consideration that the rest of us get at select board meetings. We're given 3 minutes to comment on something and then told to go shut up. So out of my respect for you, I'm willing to give you another bite at the apple. But I would point out that at your meetings, this does not happen.
Thank you, Harry. So I just wanted to clarify something. I'm not making a pitch either way, that I believe the select board may have voted this before AC voted, I think. So I think we voted ours first, and Neil Gordon was correct in saying that we were going to reconsider our position at the last meeting, but in deference to our colleague, and we were going to be a split vote. we wanted to let Michael come here and speak with you. And the select board said, we'd like to hear back from you guys. So as I said, my own opinion is, one is done. I agree we don't need multiple versions of this. So that's why I just wanted to clarify where the select board was. I personally believe I voted on the original article and then maybe an amendment that was proposed. So we have not considered your version yet, I think is my point.
Thank you. So I think we're going to go to a vote now. Michael, you're nodding your head in the wrong direction.
I believe that the select board version that we approved was a revision to the advisory's version, not the original. Because,
Thank you.
because it incorporates changes from the advisory.
I will muddy the waters even further. In a conversation I had this morning with Melissa Goff, I was told the select board is waiting for the advisory. So I think we're free to, in any event, we're free to do whatever. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to vote on the motion to reconsider, which has been proposed and seconded. Okay. Vote number 3. Warrant Article 18, recordings of public meetings, motion to reconsider previous AC vote. Harry Boers.
Yes.
Harry, you're freezing up.
Cliff
You might
Brown.
turn your camera off.
No.
Anthony Buono.
I'm going to vote no.
Elise.
Abstain.
John Doggett.
No.
David Mark.
Yes.
Neil Gordon.
Neil's a no.
Susan Granoff.
No.
Perry Grossman.
No.
Kelly Hadebeck.
Yes.
Elisa Jonas.
Yes.
Janice Kahn.
No.
Brian Ladd.
Yes.
Alec Lebovitz.
Yes.
Carol Levin.
No.
Jocelyn Murphy.
No.
Danelle O'Neill.
No.
Linda Olson Pelkey.
Yes.
Fran Perler.
No.
David Pollock. Not yet. Carlos Ridway.
He's voting no in the chat.
Margaret.
Yes.
Lee Selwyn.
No.
And Chris Westfall.
Abstain.
So by a vote of 8 in favor, 13 against, and 2 abstentions, we are not reconsidering. me stop sharing. See if I can turn on my video. So I thank you, Michael and Paul. I will be sending a note to Melissa that we have chosen not to reconsider our previous position.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we shall move on to warrant Article 8, the lighting article. I can see that I believe both Davids are here. David Titel is here. David Trivette is here. I'm missing David Pollock. And Kelly has no voice. Is anyone from advisory ready to explain what's going on, or should I give it an attempt and then we'll turn it over to the Davids? Well, actually, I'll turn it over to David Titel.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with everybody again today. Dave Titel, town meeting member, Precinct 8. Since we last spoke, there's been 3 things that have happened which should inform whether or not you want to reconsider this. The first is this body did a straw poll on the Rubenstein Amendment, which was included in the version that you voted on. We have since struck that. The straw poll you had was 3 for, 15 against, 3 abstentions. That is no longer part of the motion. The second was that you just have had more time with this. One of the concerns that was raised by this body was that you had received the drafts within hours, if not moments, of the meeting, and now there's been a lot more time to digest. So that's something to consider. Maybe people have had different thoughts. But the key thing that I want to point out is the story of the 2 motions and why there are still 2 motions. David Trivette and I had an incredibly fruitful, frankly, fun meeting where we spent several hours trying to find compromise and create one motion to present to everybody. We thought we had succeeded. We then went to the planning and building departments and presented it to them and said, does this work? Is this enforceable? They said no. And the difference between our versions is that they insisted that the bylaw needed to have strict standards in order for them to enforce it. And they were very clear about this point. And this then created 2 versions. Our version has strict standards that were drafted in concert and in collaboration with the building and planning departments. And David Trivette's has criteria, but I won't speak for him. I will allow him to chime in. To clarify, those standards, again, are match those of dark sky and lighting bylaws that you see throughout the whole country. And the limit on light trespass is 0.1 foot candle, which equals 10 times the light of a full moon. So we spoke about this in detail. Very few things have changed since you last saw it, other than planning had requested a total limit for the amount of light that any parcel would have. So we included that. Beyond that, in the Rubenstein Amendment, nothing really has changed, but that's the history that you guys, that I wanted to make sure I shared with everybody. And that is all I got to say about that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Before I go to David Trivette, I just want to give our members an idea of where we are. This proposal had come before us. The Trivette amendment had come before, had sort of hit the email chain about an hour before we met last time. We didn't really consider it. And we voted by, I believe, a rather narrow vote. But we voted to send this to a moderators committee. So the current recommendation of advisory is to send this to a moderators committee. Tonight, after we hear from everybody, I will take a vote on whether we want to reconsider our decision to send it to a moderators committee. If that fails, then we're done. If it passes, then we have the Titel and petitioners petition as it currently sits. We have the Trevette version, which would be I believe, a substitute motion. And we have the option, I suppose, of just voting no action on everything. So that's sort of the direction in which we're going. And so I'm going to turn it over now to David Trevette to help make this a little clearer for us on his part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. David Trevette, town meeting member from Precinct 2. I know it's late. I'll try to be brief, but you just went through a discussion on 9 where the devil was in the details, and this is another one. And so it's important to at least highlight some of those details. I want to emphasize 2 major points. One, Dave Titel has already said, we had a great working session, lots of exchanges, some intense exchanges over several days, and we came up with a compromise that we all could agree with, all the petitioners from both of these versions. But the petitioners wanted full planning support, and that was not granted to the compromise. So I decided to go ahead and submit the compromise. So what you see in front of you from me, my amended substitute is basically the compromise. It includes changes that I made to my original because they were requested by the petitioners or by planning. And I'm trying to continue a dialogue with planning. We still have differences understanding here, and so I'm trying to continue that. My second point is that my core issue remains. The petitioner's version seeks to enshrine into our town bylaws new standards that have not been discussed or debated in any of the hearings that have been held on this article. Standards that were not in the article as it was originally proposed, they were added later, roughly a month ago, and that have not received a full public airing, and which, in my opinion, are not actually needed in order to address the question of lighting nuisance complaints. An email that I received from planning just this morning in response to my question to them seems to confirm that they do see this article as establishing new standards for regulation of outdoor lighting. Ask yourselves, did you view this article as establishing new outdoor lighting regulations? Do you recall any discussions of the specifics of those proposed standards? Can you answer the following questions about these proposed standards and conditions? Why would a lighting nuisance that occurs before 10 p.m. be exempt? Remember, it gets dark by 4 or 4:30 p.m. In the winter. Why should very dim outdoor lighting be regulated as strictly as very bright lighting? Why should holiday lights be turned off at 10 p.m. if they're not very bright? Why should brightness limits for entry lights be so much lower than those for certain other types of outdoor lighting? If a lighting fixture is installed on a porch or other structure with a roof, and that roof prevents the light from going up to the sky, doesn't that help address some of the dark side concern? Why should the standards, if these were enforced as general regulations, require the replacement of hundreds of light fixtures all over Brookline when simply changing the light bulbs to a much lower level would eliminate lots of excessive lighting in town? We need common sense, pragmatic, easily understood, and effective lighting regulations in Brookline without causing unnecessary costs to our residents. My article meets those requirements with regard to lighting nuisances. Establishing broader general outdoor lighting requirements requires a public airing and discussion that the proposed standards in the petitioner's article simply have not had. They should not be tucked away in a subsection that people haven't been paying enough attention to. My article is focused strictly on lighting nuisance, only on lighting nuisance, nothing else. It offers a clear, well-defined, measurable approach to dealing with these issues. Back when I was responsible for all the central business systems of the University of Chicago, I work closely with the university's legal and purchasing staff to review and negotiate major software contracts and service agreements. I learned to pay close attention to the detailed language because the devil is in the details. I was often the one who spotted contradictions, unintended consequences, or other problems in those documents. The details do matter. Because of that history, I cannot support a backdoor approach to adopting new standards in our bylaws. Remember that the petitioners and I did come to an agreement on a motion. We fully agree with the need to address lighting nuisance and even longer term to adopt general outdoor lighting standards. But as I said in my email to the town meeting members list, I consider the latest version to set a dangerous precedent. Adopting new standards without public debate is simply wrong. Therefore, if you can't support my substitute motion, I urge you to vote for referral. Thank you.
Thank you. David Titel, I will come back to you. You know, the petitioners are here to answer questions, and we'll give both the Davids a chance to, before we vote on anything, wrap up. David Pollock, I know you arrived late. Is there anything before we go to questions and comments that you wish to add, if for no other reason than your name is David and it would seem to fit in? I will take that as a no.
Not
I thought
seeing
David,
him.
he was here a moment ago.
Yeah, but I don't see him now.
Okay, so in any event, David Mark, take it away.
First up is Lee Selwyn.
Thanks. You know, I have viewed this this motion, I mean this article, as something of an overkill. There's clearly a problem that has been identified. There are certain houses that have adopted egregiously bright outdoor lighting. And I'm very sympathetic to the effort to try to constrain that. What I'm not sympathetic to is adopting standards that don't really get to that issue. And I looked over the most recent version, and it seems to me that the thing that has always troubled me the most since this first came before the land use subcommittee was this notion of light trespass. The version that was circulated the day or so ago, or whatever it was, I didn't get to look at it until today, now has a limit on the lumen output of any individual luminaire or light bulb, and a second limit on the total light output in lumens from any individual property. The individual light bulb would be at 500, as I understand it, and the maximum for any property would be 1500 lumens, which is roughly equivalent to 150 watt bulb, and one as the size of an individual bulb, and 350 watt bulbs overall. I actually consider these standards to be a little on the low side. I was looking at my own house, and we have outdoor lighting consisting of 460 watt bulbs spread over about 100 feet. And I don't think it bothers anybody. But that said, it seems to me that those standards accomplish two things. First, they focus on the glare issue. They address the egregiously bright lighting that everybody seems most troubled by, because they put maximum limits on any individual light source. And second, they are enforceable, because unlike the light trespass concept, where there are different approaches that can be used. I did it mathematically the other day. Others have gone. I've gotten several phone calls in the last day and a half about this from proponents of the Warren article, and suggesting that they went and used a light meter. And they were getting measurements overall that were, at or below 0.1, even with respect to some of those very bright light situations on West Roxbury Parkway and in South Brookline. So that doesn't surprise me, because a photographic or photography-oriented light meter is going to look at essentially take an interpolation across the entire scene that it sees. And it says there's one bright light source, that's not going to necessarily affect the overall reading terribly much. And in fact, you could have 500 lumens or 50 watt, 150 watt bulb or 51 watt bulbs, and you can get entirely different readings using a light meter, even though the total lumen output might be exactly the same. So what I think we could do to address the glare and very bright light concerns is to simply delete all references to light trespass. That's been the most troubling thing from my perspective. So I took the latest version, and if you let me share my screen, I'll show you what I did. And I'm usually not very good at this.
I have made you a co-host.
Okay.
I would just add as an editorial comment, Lee,
Yeah.
that if we find ourselves in a position tonight where we're doing a lot of amendments and wordsmithing, then perhaps our original proposal to send it to a moderator's committee might make more sense.
Well, I'm not
That-
sure I
that's
necessarily
my 2
disagree with that, but there seem to be a number of folks that think this is so important that they want to move it forward. So I was trying to basically come up with a way to do that. Are you able to see this? Did I do it right?
Yes, we can see
Okay.
it.
Okay. So what I've done here is, wait a minute, I opened the wrong file. Let me unshare. I gotta do this over, Harry.
That's okay. So hit the unshare red button or green
Yeah.
button and start anew.
Okay, hang on just 1 second. What I need to do is get rid of some junk on my screen, so I make sure I'm looking at the right file.
While you're doing that, I will note to members of the committee that I had a text conversation with our chairman, Dennis Doughty, on Sunday. I asked him how he was doing. He said he had great fatigue, had a slight headache, a very large scar, and a black eye on the right side. So I said I would report to people that he had never looked or felt better, and that he recommended a brain transplant to anybody. And he agreed that that was the route to go. So Lee, go ahead.
Well, that sounds really exciting, a brain transplant. I have to think about that one. All right, so what I've done here is I've gone through this version, and essentially everywhere where there is a reference to light trespass, I simply deleted it. Everything I've highlighted in green, and I'll go through this slowly, is what I'm proposing be deleted. I haven't added any other language. I've just simply deleted references to light transport. So what we have left is essentially focusing on glare, and we have the limits of light output at the source. And I can email this around or however you'd like, and I apologize for it coming so late, but I was just trying to come up with a solution that would let us potentially vote on something instead of referral. Because I think that this eliminates the most problematic part of the draft. The reason I said that I consider this also way more enforceable than a light trespass approach. You know, while a potential complainant can't necessarily walk across the neighbor's property up to the light source and measure its output at the source, the building commissioner can. If there's a complaint, the building commissioner can go and determine whether or not the individual light source exceeds the specified limits. And if it does, then the offender has to do something about it. And if it doesn't, that's the end of it. It's much less ambiguous. It directly addresses the problem of glare. And I think, you know, it's a way to accomplish what the petitioners have in mind without this sort of excessively broad and potentially difficult to enforce approach. By putting limits on the light source, we also avoid the, I'll know it when I see it problem, because you've quantified what the, what would constitute an unacceptable level of light coming by measuring it at the source. So if the body moves to reconsider, then I would offer this as a potential amendment that might get us to a point where we could go forward with a recommendation other than referral, and perhaps also consider referral to refine this further. For example, I think that, again, I'm not going to propose changes in the 500, 1,500 numbers that are here, although I think they are unreasonably low, but they're a start, and we could address that going forward. But this gets to the problem of the extremely bright lights that of the type that we saw in the those photographs last week.
Thank you, Lee. I think you can stop sharing.
I'm going to do that.
And
Lee, are you done? Are you done, Lee?
Yeah.
Okay, next up is Janice.
Hi. So I wanted to address a couple of the reasons I've heard for wanting to do this referral, and that is two concerns that town council raised. One was saying that Brookline has a history of regulating lighting through the zoning bylaws and therefore can't regulate it now through a general bylaw. And the other one has to do with concerns the select board, I heard talking about, they were concerned about lawsuits. So just to briefly update you on my research. So this weekend I did some research, and to also update you, I am married to one of the co-petitioners. So I've been following this, but I have not been writing this. So anyway, so over the weekend, I took out my 2006 version of the zoning bylaw. And that date's going to be important because it predates the 2010 nuisance control bylaw, and it predates 2016 when town meeting approved the changing of Article 7, signs, illumination, regulated facade alterations, into a zoning bylaw that strictly regulated signs, including illuminated signs. And in looking at 7.04, it's really clear that that was meant to be a sign bylaw, not a general lighting bylaw. In fact, general lighting is only mentioned very briefly in a couple of subsections, but the vast majority of the actual sections are related to either signs or facade. And that's it. So it's no way a lighting bylaw. And then let's see. So what it does say, the only thing it does mention is that In all districts, all lighting shall be installed and maintained so that no direct light or glare shines on any street or nearby property. And I looked at the definitions, which are in Article 2, definitions, section 2.07 for definition of glare. There is no definition of glare, nor is there a definition for illumination, because both illumination and glare are understood. And I think Lee made that point well. So what we do have, though, in the zoning bylaw is Article 4, Section 4.07 contains the table of use regulations. And number 47 in that section notes the following: any trade, industry, or other use that is noxious, offensive, or hazardous by reason of vibration or noise, or the emission of odors, dust, gas, fumes, smoke, cinders, flashing or excessively bright light, refuse matter, or electromagnetic radiation is banned in all districts. SSC, TM, LGO, and I. And when I looked at, when I looked in the index for nuisance, it brought me to this particular section of 4.07. So we've had nuisances. These are all considered nuisance, including noise and light. But we actually passed our nuisance bylaw in 2010, which is well after we have this in our zoning bylaws. So that is certainly one area where we wrote it in zoning, but afterwards we put it into our general bylaws. And that's because, well, anyway. So we have a history of addressing nuisances such as noise or lighting, even signs. So that's the other thing too, in our zoning bylaws. And then when an issue becomes a significant community concern, it's brought separately to town meeting to become part of our general bylaws. And here's a copy of our general bylaws. And the general bylaws that are of real concern are those in section 8, which deals with community well-being. So, so that's one thing. But the issue of potential lawsuits is the other. And a reason some of the select board members gave a reason for supporting referral. But our general bylaws right now contain many articles that could be subject to lawsuits, particularly in Part 8, which deals with public health and safety. That's where noise and nuisance bylaws, for instance, are located. But does that mean we need to just get rid of our general bylaws because we might be sued? So I would say that this is absolutely appropriate to do this article in our general bylaws, and furthermore, that the time is now. The building and planning believe this is enforceable. And we should get it done. We can't keep kicking the can down the road all the time. Our departments have a lot on their plate already. And frankly, we have standards in the noise bylaw. We have standards in the leaf blower bylaw. I doubt everybody in Brookline knows what those standards are. And we leave it to the experts to define what standards are. I certainly am not an expert in noise, so I urge us to all reconsider and support this article. Thanks.
Thank you, Janice. Christine?
I would say that we should stick with our referral motion. It's clear that there's a conflict between the two Davids on which way we should go with this, that we haven't discussed what the standard should be long-term. I understand, what Janice is saying about that, although I would point out that we have revisited the noise bylaw, I can't tell you how many times. And rather than, and don't even go there with leaf blowers and noise, rather than do something just to get something done, I think we could take a little more time and actually do it right. And so I would suggest that we go with our original motion, which is referral.
Okay, Elisa?
I am, and I'm sorry to say this, David and David, but I agree with Christine that I think we should keep with referral. I have been looking at these two different versions for about an hour to try to identify all the differences, what's included, what's not. What I'm finding, I agree with David Trevette, that I think it's very confusing to put standards into a nuisance bylaw that has nothing to do with whether lighting is a nuisance. So the purpose of this bylaw, we're told, is to prohibit excessive outdoor lighting during certain hours, 10 to 6, which I also find somewhat problematic. But let's see, the blinking lights, outdoor lighting shall not flash, blink, or change in color. I do not see how that's relevant to a determination of whether something is causing a nuisance or not. I can see that it's a lighting standard, and we might want to put that into a bylaw about standards about lighting, but it really has nothing to do with nuisance. Let's see, I think there was another one that I found that was similar to that. I am also concerned about the exceptions to the prohibitions, E and F, cafe lights and shielded directional luminaires, and temporary holiday seasonal seating, lighting. We are told what is okay to do for those lights, to have them not be a nuisance. But then we're told that they have to be shut off by the hours from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I know that was the biggest concern in the meeting that we just had last night in our precinct. Does everyone have to turn off their holiday lights at 10 p.m. even if they're not too bright? I'm also concerned, there's a lot of confusion. That for me, it was very confusing. On the one hand, the main purpose of the lighting nuisance, we are told, is to address outdoor nighttime lighting during the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. That's a nuisance. And yet, when it says prohibition of lighting nuisance and standards and materials for compliance, it's not clear to me when we're dealing with the hours of 10 to 6 that the building commissioner has to follow up, or if it's just at any time during the day, if it's too bright. So I just don't understand the 10 to 6, why we would want to place that restriction on it. If it's 5 and there's glare, then perhaps that should be of concern, especially if it's considered a nuisance. I'm still bothered by including public monuments and public properties under applicability. The section applies to outdoor lighting in residence districts originating from private residential properties, except for the following. Public monuments and public properties are not an exception. It is part, they are not included as part of the definition of the first line. I think for people it'd be confusing. They would say, wait a second, am I not understanding the first line right? Maybe there can be commercial properties on commercial buildings on residential properties. I just think that I understand the reason why it was put in, but I don't think it belongs there. So I just have a lot of various, I can go through some other concerns. But think it could be improved upon. I do think that David Trevet's is much more organized. I think it's clear. I don't understand the problem with mentioning the term criteria instead of standards. I think it would be so easy. I mean, David, I almost think you should have just changed criteria and said these provisions, if you have to comply with these provisions. But even with yours, where you discuss nighttime lighting, the applicability, where is it? The section applies to outdoor lighting in residential districts originating from private residential properties after dark, especially during the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. I think that could cause a complication for the building commissioner, because what does that mean? Especially between, does that mean you maybe have to enforce in one situation, but not in the other because it's especially? So I find that a little problematic. Another concern that I've just generally thought about is, and that's for both of them, the temporary lighting for construction sites. I think the example that Jocelyn has given deals with a property that has had lighting on a construction site, but it's been there forever. I don't know what they're doing with that building, but it remains there. And I personally think that we should have a time restriction on how long that kind of lighting could be allowed, because if it is lighting that's disturbing everyone and it's there for a year because it's temporary, because it hasn't been done, I think that's something that should be addressed. So I'm not sure that the concern that Jocelyn had would even be addressed by this. So anyways, I think it would benefit from some more work, putting together the heads of all these great minds that have thought about things like this and come up with one for the next town meeting.
Thank you, Elisa. David, Mark, before you go to anybody else, David Pollack has been bouncing in and out because I think he's trying to go to 2 meetings at once. David, I want to give you the opportunity while you're here, if you have anything to add to this conversation, since you're the chairman of that subcommittee.
Yeah, no, I'm not in 2 meetings at once. When you guys arrived at warrant article, was in 3 February. No, I was actually at the Hill Community Advisory Group meeting, and I ran home, but now I've been struggling with technical difficulties, which is why I'm on my phone. So I've been exclusively paying attention to this conversation. I've been tracking, I don't have much to say. I've been tracking this very closely since advisory took it up, and obviously before. I followed the work that David Trevet and David Titel did, and then subsequently the presentation at the TMMA and Brookline Neighborhood Alliance, and I will simply say, speaking as one highly informed member of advisory, that I also think that this should be referred and taken up very carefully and thoughtfully, so that we really get the right solution. And I won't repeat the things that Elisa just went through, but those are very much the kinds of concerns I have, that it isn't well constructed law, and that we want well constructed law.
Thank you so much. David, Mark, take it away.
Next up is Carol.
Hi, thank you. So I also feel that this really needs to be referred as we passed. I think the petitioners have problems that they're focused on addressing, but they aren't really thinking about the unintended consequences. And, I live in North Brookline. I live on the hill above the high school. And the T runs till, I think it's 1 a.m. during the week and 2 a.m. on weekends. And we have people walking on the streets late at night, kids, adults. I've come home at 11 o'clock at night when I'm walking, and the streetlights are only on one side. And excuse me, the lights on houses, which I think many people would say are too bright, are really important for the sense of pedestrian safety that I know I have and other people have when we're walking around North Brookline late at night. And I'm really concerned that that hasn't been given ample consideration in these two warrant articles, that what is one person's nuisance is another person's safety blanket. So I'm not going to vote for reconsideration. Thank you.
Neil Gordon.
Yeah, I want to go back, but my question to this seems like a long time ago, where there was mention of a compromise as between Dave and Dave on the petitioner's version and the sponsor of the amended version, and that there was an agreement, but the third party planning disagreed. And so, do I have this right? And so the compromise fell apart because we had the petitioner and the amender in agreement, but planning disagreed. And you know, is it? I'd like to understand if that I get that right, and why it is important, if it is important, for planning to agree.
I can speak to that. So the answer is that on behalf of my co-petitioners, the third rail for all this is that it needed to be enforceable. If the point of this fundamentally in our minds is to enforce Brookline residents to be able to take complaints to their neighbors knowing that they'll have town backing, that means they need to have town backing. And the planning and building departments were adamant that the compromise motion that we shared with them, they could not adequately enforce. They insisted on specific language so they could do their job. And that was a deal breaker for our group.
Can I, if I can, I'm sorry
Please.
for interrupting, but do you and your compromise partner agree that it's not enforceable, or is?
We took, speaking on behalf of our group, I don't want to speak for David. We took Dan Bennett and his team's, comments at face value, because they're the ones that are going to have to go in the field. They're the ones that are going to have to make the measurements. They're the ones who are going to have to make the determinations and ultimately levy the fines. And if they feel that they did not have language behind them that would empower them to do it, they're either not even going to bother or it's not going to work. And those are both deal breakers. So that's what broke apart the compromise amendment. And that's why, as I said at the beginning of my comments, while the language of these two are very similar in nature, where they're different is where planning insisted on language. Some of the language that's been mentioned as why do we need this here? This seems superfluous, is language planning specifically insisted upon.
Am I okay to speak?
I'll say, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. No one has been able to explain to me how those specific things that are listed as shall and shall not language are in any way relevant to enforcing, as far as I'm concerned, a very clearly defined and measurable bylaw governing light trespass and only light trespass. It says, here's the definition. This is what it is. First, there has to be a complaint. Somebody has to have been disrupted or discomforted by that. Then there's a measurement that's prescribed. And if you've got both the complaint and a repeatable measurement, then that can be decided as a violation. I have no idea why that list, if you think about it, in 8XX4, there's a list of what will not be enforced. Look, I can't tell you how much I value and respect our expert and hardworking staff. And I'm absolutely baffled. I've said this to them. I'm totally baffled by why we're seeing this so differently. Please tell me, and I've written this, I mean, I've written this out. Here's why I'm objecting to A, B, C, D, and E. I've sent that to them. And I had managed, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, Dave Titel can correct me, I don't think they were able to talk directly with Dan Bennett. They relied on planning communications with Dan Bennett. I was able to arrange a very short conversation with Dan Bennett, but it was unfortunate. The only time he could get back to me was when he was driving home in the car, and that was after my trying for at least a week and a half. And I specifically asked him, I said, am I removing something that keeps you from doing your job? And he said, well, I want to make sure that these two things are in. I said, yep, they're still in there. So as far as I'm concerned, my opinion is that my article is very enforceable because it tries to do one thing and one thing only, deal with lighting trespass complaints.
So to be clear, right, before you were told it was staff that it wasn't enforceable, did the two of you believe your compromise article was enforceable? That's part A. And part B, is it not enforceable because, in the opinion of planning, is it not enforceable because it's not clear what the standard is? Or is it not enforceable because there's insufficient staff to address the potential complaints?
I can speak to that. We did suspect it would be enforceable. And we did suspect it would be enforceable. We were informed it was not because the language was not strong enough. Staff was not the concern that was ever addressed to us. It was about the language saying removing the shall and shall not language, changing the word standard to criteria was deemed not strong enough for them to be able to speak. That's what they told us, but you'll have to hear it directly from them. And presumably they will be there tomorrow to be able to speak to that point. But that is the instruction they told us. They were very clear about that, and that is what broke that compromise. But it was never about a staffing issue. Dan Bennett has said in multiple places, I think maybe with this body, but honestly, they're blurring, that, he didn't suspect there'd be a surge. And if there was a lot, he would prioritize the ones that mattered most and were the most egregious. But there didn't seem to be any voice I've heard about a fear of staffing. Quite the opposite. We worked so closely with them. They had ample opportunity to say this is going to be unenforceable because we don't have the staff. That never came up, not once.
It is somewhat ironic that some of the points that Elisa pointed out with regard to my article were things that I originally weren't in mine, and I put back in as a result of the negotiation with the original petitioners. They insisted that the statement about, government properties, et cetera, be back in, some other things be back in. I didn't think those were necessary. I thought they were redundant. I thought they were confusing. They thought they helped understanding. And so, and I didn't want any hours referenced in the introductory section. But my notion of that, especially during the hours of 10 to 6, I was trying my best to do something, because planning says you have to have 10 to 6 in there. They said, we insist on that. I didn't want it. And so that's why they wanted to get rid of the after dark. They said, that's not, nobody knows what that means. I'm sorry, I think people do know what after dark means. So I inserted that, especially 10 to 6, as some way to try to deal with what they were suggesting.
Neil, are you done?
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, Harry, that's it.
Okay. Just to be fair here, David, do you have anything? Actually, let's go to Jocelyn's comment.
Thanks very much, Harry. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize that I didn't realize that I'd run out of time there. So I just want to speak in favor of this article. I really appreciate the amount of time that both Davids and and the rest of the team put into this, because I think this is a very important issue. The ACPH, the Advisory Council on Public Health, took this article up earlier this evening. They didn't vote on it, but they did discuss it. And they acknowledged that this is a public health issue. Excessive lighting is bad for public health. It is there is a plethora of peer-reviewed journal and other medical articles on this, pointing out that excessive lighting messes with people's circadian rhythms, which causes a whole host of other issues. So I want to be certain that people know this is a matter of public health, not to mention the environmental issues, but putting that aside for a moment. 64 other communities in Massachusetts have lighting bylaws or ordinances. And for some reason, we can't get it together and get a lighting bylaw passed. I just can't understand it. You know, the perfect is the enemy of the good. We should have something in the books so that Dan Bennett and his crew can start enforcing what is really egregious lighting. And it's not just light pollution and you know, lighting into people's houses and so forth. It's also glare, which is really dangerous. I think I described earlier the light on Newton Street that frankly was blinding to me as I approached this intersection. It's particularly an issue for older people because they tend to have imperfections in their eyes, which cause light scatter. So it's a circumstance that is exacerbated. Glare is exacerbated by people that have poor eyesight. So I think we should get something on the books. We can fix it later if it's imperfect. This is an article that both Dan Bennett and the planning department have said that they can enforce. It's time. This is reminding me of the tree bylaw. It took 20 years to get a tree bylaw passed. Let's just get it done and start improving the quality of life for people that have lights shining in their bedroom windows and are creating traffic hazards. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, I want to be fair to the two Davids. You've made extensive comments within the last to Neil Gordon. Is there anything you wish to add before I take a motion for reconsideration? David Keitel, let you go first.
Yes, please. Thank you. I just want to clarify some things that were some misconceptions that I heard through comments from this body. The first is that I want to remind everybody this is a nuisance bylaw, which means it is complaint driven and action only happens when there's a complaint, which means that holiday lighting doesn't have to be turned off unless there is a complaint about it. It's not that everybody has a curfew. There was comments about how we have to replace hundreds and hundreds of bulbs. We do not have to replace hundreds and hundreds of bulbs. We have to replace specific problematic bulbs that meet the criteria of nuisance as defined. And these issues that we've been talking about, these standards, really what this is these are guidelines that building needs to be able to ascertain, does this reach the level of nuisance? It's an instruction book, if you will. It's there to help them be able to show up with a light meter and say, okay, does this meet the level of nuisance? And then they provide safe harbors for residents. So they know, okay, if I lower the temperature of this bulb, I'm now within the allowable zone. It can't be called a nuisance. So it's there to help the residents meet the goals. It's there to help the building department identify the issue. So I just wanted to clarify those points. Anyway, thank you very much for one last opportunity to speak.
Harry.
Thank you.
Harry.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if no one has commented about the suggestion that I made to eliminate references to light trespass. I wonder if the petitioners could at least opine on whether that would be acceptable to them, because that's certainly going to affect my vote on reconsideration.
So David Keitel, let me go back to you for that specific question.
I'm gonna punt on that, and the reason I'm gonna punt on that is for the same reason that we broke up the compromise, which is I don't want to tell you that we're open to it and then find out that planning says that makes it unenforceable, because then I'm just going to do a 180 on you. So until our town officials can deem that that approach would be enforceable, I don't think it's fair that we speak to it for or con. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
David Tribet, if you could answer that question and then whatever else you need to add.
Yes, responding to both of these questions now and what he said earlier, remember that in my document, there is one and only one measurement, and that's taken at a light measure, at the lot line. You don't have to go up to somebody else's house. I tried my best. The lot level limits, I did not include those in mine. I did include a little bit in the so-called get out of jail free cards, because that's, that kind of language is something I was trying my best to conform to what the petitioners and planning wanted to see, but that's only about what is not going to be enforced. That is nothing to say that this is going to be enforced in my. I don't talk about standards. I don't talk about shall or shall not. It's only in the petitioner's version that you find shall and shall not language, standards for compliance. I don't have that language. I'm not trying to put in new general outdoor lighting standards. And so there's a complaint, there's a measurement at the lot line. And if you were somebody who's being offended by a neighbor, you're certainly going to allow the building petitioner to come onto your property, go up to the lot line between you and your neighbor, and measure the light that is coming into your property. You are going to be able to do that. And my contention is that if it's strong enough, that most glare problems that we're hearing about, the light is strong enough to trigger that measurement and be in excess of it. So I do not support getting rid of that measurement, no.
Okay,
Thank you so much. So I want to now see if anyone wants to propose. So our current recommendation is to send it to a moderators committee, is referral. Does anyone want to propose reconsideration of our current position?
I'll move it.
Going once?
David
I'm
Mark
not
is
hearing-
moving it.
I'm sorry?
David Mark moved it. I will second it.
Okay, so we will go to reconsideration. If reconsideration fails, then we've got our referral motion, and that's what the position of the advisory committee is. If reconsideration passes, it's 9:15 at night, and God help us, I don't know what's going to happen, but we shall see. So let me share my screen. Actually, I'm going to turn off my video and then share my screen. Okay, this is vote number 4. Nuisance lighting motion to reconsider previous AC vote. Harry Boers,
No.
Cliff Brown,
No.
Anthony Buono,
No.
Elise,
No.
John Doggett,
No.
David Mark Goldstein,
Yes.
Neil Gordon,
Yes.
Susan Granoff,
No.
Perry Grossman,
Come back to me, please.
Kelly Hadebeck,
No.
Elisa Jonas,
No.
Janice Kahn,
Yes.
Brian Ladd,
Yes.
Alec Lebovitz,
Yes.
Carol Levin,
No.
Jocelyn Murphy,
Yes.
Pam was here a few minutes ago.
I'm
Harry.
here now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I came in late and I'm voting no.
No. Good to see you. How are you voting, Pam?
No, please.
No, thank you. Danell O'Neill.
Yes.
Yes. Linda Olson Pelkey.
No.
Fran Perler.
Yes.
David Pollock.
No.
Carlos Ridwejo.
He voted yes in the chat.
Thank you. Margaret.
Yes.
Lee Selwyn.
No.
Chris Westfall.
No.
So by a vote of 10 in favor, 14 against, and
Perry,
zero-
I'm going to vote no.
Oh, Perry. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Perry.
I'm going to vote no.
No. Okay. Thank you. So by a vote of 10 in favor, 15 against, and no abstentions, we are sticking with our recommendation to send this to a moderators committee. Let me get out of this. I thank the two Davids for all their hard work on this. We shall see what happens tomorrow night.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I never thought I would say this, but now we come to the easy one, which is Clark Road. Because there's very little for us to do here, and I hope we can handle it rather quickly. We have approved warrant Article 7 by a vote of 25 to 1 to 1. And there were some, as I understand it, just minor glitches that needed to be worked out, something beyond a Scrivener's error, but less than a great dispute. These have now been worked out. It's in the version that's in your packet. Kelly, can you literally speak to this, or do you want to pass it on to someone else?
I won't speak to this, but I will share my screen.
Okay, let me make you a co-host. Hold on.
And maybe Dave can speak to this. But basically, there was substantial changes.
Okay, bear with me. I'm having a little problem here.
It might be easy if Kelly shared the memo that she sent to everyone outlining the changes so that people can see them and she can maybe spare her voice and just answer questions.
Okay, I'm just trying to find her. Here we go. Make co-host, confirm. Okay, Kelly, you have sharing privileges. So these are the changes summarized below. These dot points are the changes. So you can see that in one section, the date of the Nolan survey was updated from October 4 to November 25. In section 2F, the footprint area of the South Addition was changed from 5,940 square feet to 5,225, and the reference number for the table was inserted. In section 2H, the footprint area of the North Addition was changed from 1093 square feet to 1227 square feet, and the reference number for the table was inserted. In table 5.06.4 point 4, page 1, the lot size was adjusted from 39,395 to 37,000 square feet, and the usable open space was adjusted from 10,000 square feet minimum to 8,500 square foot minimum. A note was added specifying that a roof deck or patio does not need to meet the minimum dimensions required under section 5.91 to be counted as usable open space. Under step backs, a note with the date of the updated Nolan survey was added. The overall building height was adjusted upwards to 60 feet due to changes in how building height was measured originally. Note the height of the addition has remained at 11 feet from floor to floor. The number of units is fixed at 35 for both minimum and maximum, and a note added to allow an exception to minimum unit size for no more than 2 units. The accessory building sections were renamed accessory maintenance structure. In section 5, the lot metrics table was restored. In section 5E, the design review section was removed. And in section 12, public benefits, the hours for the Clack Road tot lot were updated to 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'm not sure I can agree with any of these changes. I think they're pretty dramatic. But David, Mark, let's go to questions.
Linda's first.
Thanks, David, Mark. I just wanted to ask, I guess, either Kelly, if she knows, or I saw that Taylor is on the call from Jeffrey Allen's office. But I'm assuming this came about because some architect sat with somebody in the planning department and went through it with a fine-tooth comb. And the one thing I'm kind of disappointed about the open space standard. I don't really understand how that impacts what we think we're going to get, but I guess I can let it go because I don't think they reduce the on-the-ground open space at all. But this bit about the exception for the 2 smaller units, like why not just make the range bigger and I don't care how many small units they build and how much smaller they are. I mean, I don't know why they did it that way. I guess I'm kind of complaining. I would have liked them to have consulted us. I feel like we have to accept this now. We don't really have a choice because this is going to town meeting tomorrow night and people aren't going to reconsider again and all the rest of it. So, Harry, I don't think any of these are really a big deal. So I think you can feel confident that you're not blowing the thing up by voting for this. It's, for those of us who spent a lot of time on this, I think it's okay. I'm just complaining. I don't like these kind of things at the last minute, and I do feel like we're being forced to accept this.
Okay, thank you, Linda. I'm next. I also agree with Linda. I don't like this stuff at the last minute. I don't see why the planning board couldn't have done this, a month or 2 ago. I do have a question for anybody on the call that's not Kelly, to save her voice. Can somebody tell me why the lot metrics was restored? Why was it removed in the first place, and why was it restored? And also the next one, the design review section was removed. Could somebody just explain the rationale behind those?
I think I can do that. So when Kelly made her amendment, we took out all of the specifications for the CRM2 parcel, which was the single family 10,000 square foot lot that we were talking about separately. So all of that stuff was just removed from the article so that that lot was still in the overlay, but none of the specifications about the zoning were included. And apparently, I think the only thing that's memorialized is the size of the lot and its underlying zoning. Oh, she's highlighting something. Documenting and preserving them. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like the developer asking for that to me. So why we had to put it back in. The other thing about the design review was that in the beginning, The whole thing was going to be by right development with only site plan review. And then I started screaming about that. And then the planning board decided they didn't like that. And so then they asked for a special permit requirement with design review to be added into it if we were going to go forward with rezoning the single family parcel. But we're not. So we don't need that in there now. It's all going to, you know, everything about the new zoning for that other parcel is yet to be determined.
Okay, thank you. I joined Perry and Elise in wanting a brain transplant now. Lee Selwyn, you're next. You're muted, Lee.
Sorry. I'm a bit confused about the nature of some of these revisions because, you know, typically the deed to property contains, under its various dimensions, it particularly contains the number of square feet. Now, it might say more or less because it may not be precise, but these are pretty big changes. I'm trying to understand how property that was transferred to this owner 18 months ago or thereabouts suddenly dropped from 39,000 some odd square feet to 37,000 square feet. I mean that's a pretty big change, and I don't you know what does it say in the deed, and why is this change suddenly showing up now? I'm not sure it matters. I'm against this whole thing, as you know, and I'm still going to vote against it. But this is just yet another example of the you know what we're seeing here. I just, you know, I don't know how many other revisions they're going to suddenly decide that they need to make to this plan as things go forward. So maybe someone can answer this question: how does the lot shrink by you know, almost 7-8%?
Taylor may be able to answer this, but I wonder if it has something to do with negotiating the passageway, the pedestrian path.
Well, that sounds like the change from the 10,000 to the 8,500. I thought of that, but I'm talking about the CRM1, which seems to have gone from 39,000 some odd to 37,000.
Right. Well, but the passage goes across CRM1, so maybe they're thinking maybe they don't want to own it. I'm speculating. I wasn't in the conversation.
Yeah, but I mean, they do own it. Are they going to cede it to the town? Is that the plan, or you know, or what?
That's why we could ask the petitioner or the attorney if that's why that happened. I don't know why that happened otherwise. And again, it doesn't really matter because the constraints are on that they can't make the building any bigger on this piece of land. So there's not a lot at risk here.
Is somebody going to answer Lee's question, or should we move on to the next speaker? Taylor, are you online? Okay, maybe he stepped away. All right, let's go to Brian Ladd for now.
Thanks. Yeah, questions have been being raised and being answered here. I was going to answer, well, I am going to answer something, but again, the general point is, to quote David from a second ago, it doesn't really matter. What the subcommittee did and then what advisory ratified was to establish the constraints on the CRM1 lot such that the developer can only build exactly what they are proposing to build, the redevelopment of the school building. And what that's led to is a scramble to adjust the numbers up to the very last minute. But none of these really matter. But I wanted to answer a question, to my best understanding, that Linda raised. She answered a couple of questions, but as far as the minimum minimum unit size issue, when I first saw that we had a minimum unit size, I wondered why. And then I realized, remember that we are getting 5 affordable units out of this building, and we don't want those to be all micro units. And so there was a minimum size here. Now, I don't know exactly why there's now an exception of 2. It probably had to do with measurements of the space within the building to give them a little bit of leeway. to fit all their units in, but they're not allowed to do 5 micro units.
Actually, I think the affordable housing inclusionary zoning has statements about equity between the units that I don't think that's the answer, Brian, for why they changed this. I think they really are going to make smaller units, and they realized it, and I just think they should have made the range include that smaller number and be done with it. I don't know why they had to do it this precisely. But they
All right,
couldn't
I
have
can-
gotten away with making tiny units for the affordable units. That's not how it works.
Sorry, I was having technical difficulties turning my audio on, and I also have no voice. But the reason for the adjustment on the lot size was that Maria worked with a surveyor and the town comparing the measurements that were in the deed and that the GIS map has. So they recommended to change the 39 to 37. That's what I know happened with that change. So I just wanted to answer your question. I'm sorry about not timely answering.
Taylor Lee, could you just, for purposes of the recording, identify who you are?
Oh yeah, of course. Taylor Lee, and I'm an attorney for the petitioner, or
Thank
the
you.
owner at Jeffrey
Thank
Allen's
you.
office. Thank you.
Harry, that's it.
Okay, so I think the technical way to do this is we have an existing position which is in favor, but it's in favor of a slightly different warrant article. So I think I have to take a motion to reconsider. Assuming the motion to reconsider passes, we then take a motion for favorable action on the revised warrant article. So I would appreciate somebody moving reconsideration.
So moved.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm going to turn off my video, share my screen. So this is vote number 5. Warrant Article 7, Clark Road Multifamily Overlay, motion to reconsider previous AC vote. Harry Boers,
Yes.
Cliff Brown,
Abstain.
stay. Anthony Buono,
Yes.
Elise,
Yes.
John,
Yeah.
David Mark,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
thank you. Elisa,
Yes.
Janice Khan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
Carol, Carol Levin, sorry,
I think we lost her.
okay, Pam Lotus,
Yes.
Jocelyn Murphy,
Yes.
Danelle O'Neill, Danelle,
Abstain.
Stain, Linda Olson Pelkey,
Yes.
yes. Fran Perler,
Yes.
David Pollock,
Yes.
Carlos Ridwejo,
He said yes in the chat.
thank you. Margaret Robotham,
Yes.
Lee Selwyn,
Abstain.
abstain. Chris Westfall.
Yes.
Okay, so by a vote of 21 to 0 to 3, we're going to reconsider. So I'd like somebody to make a motion on warrant article 7, motion to recommend favorable Article 7 as printed in Supplement 3.
So moved.
Don't vote.
Why
So moved. Is there a
two
second?
in favor?
Second.
Second. Thank you. So I'm gonna try and make this simple. Is anybody changing their vote?
Yeah, mine's gonna be a no.
Yours is gonna be a no. Okay. So let me see if I can get this to work. And Lee Selwyn goes from abstain to no. So by a vote of 21 to 1 to 2, we're recommending favorable action on this. Let me stop sharing. Kelly, I will send you the new report tonight with the vote done in. If you could do the narrative and send it on to Melissa, that would be great. And I'll let Melissa know it's coming. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a problem here. We've got several little problems. Warrant Article 19 on the 25th Amendment. Let me put my video on. Problem number one is there will now be a motion to lay this on the table, which which actually I don't really understand. I can't remember if lay on the table is we don't discuss it at all, we just vote on the motion to table, or whether or not there's discussion first and then you vote on the motion.
No debate, just a vote.
Thank you. So no debate, just the vote, similar to what we did last year on the Gaza resolution. We, of course, have not yet taken a position on that. The second smaller issue is that when we did take a position on warrant Article 19 at 11 something at night, you can tell by the vote that we no longer had a quorum. A quorum would have been 15 people. 13 people voted. Dennis was one, because of course he doesn't vote, so that's 14. And Elisa was, I think, kicked out for technical reasons, and she tried to get back in. So Dennis would have been 13, Elisa would have been 14, and we still would have been one person short of a quorum, which is not a great look. So I have put, according to the open meeting law, I put this on the agenda for tonight because if it's an emergency or if there wasn't time for notice, I believe, and Jocelyn helped me out here, we are under law allowed to discuss and vote on it, although the Attorney General thinks that in the spirit of the open meeting law, there ought to be 2 days notice. So at the same time, I've asked Lisa to put it on the agenda for an in-person meeting Wednesday night at 6 o'clock before town meeting, so that we can both confirm whatever our vote is with a real quorum of people and consider the motion to lay on the table. So I'm sort of opening it up for group discussion right now as to whether we take care of this tonight, and I think we legally can, or whether we postpone it till Wednesday, which would mean an in-person meeting at the high school at 6 o'clock, which would comply more with the spirit of the law as opposed to the strict technical requirements. So if you have a comment, put your name in the chat. And Janice has a question. Yes, we have a quorum tonight. We didn't have a quorum the other night. That was the problem.
Are we allowed to have the discussion at all if there's an open meeting law issue?
It is my understanding that we are in technical compliance with the open meeting law. My only discussion right now is not on the merits of the motion to table or the merits of warrant Article 19. It's whether people are interested in taking this up tonight to go into a full discussion, or to rather take the, I think, somewhat safer course of doing it at the high school on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. That's what I'm sort of asking in a informal straw poll from people.
Harry, is there anything else that's going to happen Wednesday night besides that?
There is nothing that we know is going to happen. So that leads me to the sort of second issue. We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the high school, but my plan is, unless something comes up, to tell Lisa at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to cancel it. I don't think anybody's meeting tomorrow. I'm certainly hoping there's no last minute amendment that the moderator allows that would require us to meet tomorrow night. So I think the odds of our meeting tomorrow night or Wednesday night, other than because of this article, are slight, but I can't give you a definitive answer, Lee.
Harry, just so you know, Jocelyn just put something in the chat.
Yes, so if the matter was not reasonably foreseeable within 48 hours, and 48 hours ago, we had no idea somebody was going to put a table motion on, it can be added to the agenda. So I added it to the agenda. The AGO, the Attorney General's office, encourages, but does not require postponement if the matter is controversial. I think the matter is controversial. I think we're better off from a legal point of view postponing, but I don't think we have to. Neil.
Yeah, I just want to point out that town meeting could vote tomorrow evening to take warrant article 19 up first.
And is that an argument for us doing something now?
It's an argument for why the safety net of a 48-hour notice that would have us meeting on Wednesday before the scheduled start of town meeting is an inadequate solution.
What's the likelihood of that?
That wasn't my question. The question is whether the question goes to whether a petition, right, that is recently signed, of which we had no advance notice, right, right, falls into the emergency category. And this may in fact come up before we have an opportunity to consider it.
I don't think Neil would allow that.
I don't think I'm not sure that he has the discretion not to allow it. Town meeting votes to change the order, they change the order. And we're speculating as to what the moderator might or might not allow. So I'm saying that it is within the rules of town meeting, whether it requires the moderator's approval or not. Nobody is going to ask the advisory committee in any definitive way to vote on whether it should be taken up. Article 19 should be taken up last as a matter of town meeting, or first, or anywhere in between. And we have no control over that directly.
Well, counterpoint, if we meet Wednesday, pizza. Janice Khan.
We'll find some other reason to meet.
So my only comment would be, we've had many discussions about resolutions and whether a decision by the advisory committee actually adds value to the conversation. This may be a case where we just don't need to have, I know Neil believes that we should always have some position in there.
No, that's not what I was going to say, actually. I mean, you're right.
But I'm thinking,
You're right.
yeah, but I think that, whether or not we actually vote on this may not be important. It should be the body.
I make a different argument on this. An article to lay a motion on the table is not debatable. And so who has the conversation, right, in a public forum if we don't?
Well, if it's not debatable, are they going to get our whatever we say anyway?
Sure, because it'll be published in the aisles, so-called.
Well, baloney.
Chris?
No, they don't
Something
have to
about-
read it.
Wait, do I still have to present?
Not if it's tabled.
Not if it's tabled, you don't have to present. Chris Westfall?
I just want to remind people that to the best of my knowledge and belief, under Robert's rules, if we had a quorum when the meeting started and nobody challenged the existence of the quorum before our vote, the vote was valid.
And I agree with
Notwithstanding the
you.
fact that there were not that many people there, doesn't matter.
Right, but just to let you know, two things. One, I've already been approached by someone who commented, "Hey, you guys didn't have a quorum." But if that were the only thing, I wouldn't necessarily bother with this. There is going to be a motion to table. And so even if we had voted 29 to 0, there's still going to be this motion to table.
Okay, what was our vote?
Our vote was 10 to 1 to 1.
That was a vote for favorable action.
That was a vote for favorable action on warrant Article 19.
All right.
Anthony?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I just want to make a quick point. A lot of the substance of warrant Article 19 is about respecting and desiring the rule of law at the national executive branch. So if there's a chance that we might not be following the rule of law by talking about it tonight, I think it would be best to just postpone until Wednesday. Thanks.
Okay. So I am going to make an executive decision that we will discuss this on Wednesday at 6 o'clock at this high school. Lisa will order dinner for us, and see if I have any other announcements tonight. Like I said, I'll let Lisa know by 1 o'clock tomorrow if we're meeting tomorrow night at the high school, but I sincerely doubt we will meet tomorrow night at the high school. And in case I don't get a chance to say it, I want to thank everybody. This warrant this fall was not the most difficult warrant we've ever had to go through, but there were a number of tricky warrant articles. There were a number of interesting personalities with whom the subcommittees needed to interact with petitioners, and I want to thank everybody for all the hard work. And while everybody, I think, made a real effort, I especially want to call out the land use subcommittee. They got, I think, the two worst or most difficult warrant articles, and I think they did yeoman's work in many hours of meetings. So with that, unless somebody else has anything to add,
I have a question.
yes.
Where we have supplemental recommendations from the advisory committee that need to be printed up and distributed to town meeting members in time for tomorrow's town meeting. Can we send them to you, I guess, tonight for you to look at, and then you send it to?
I don't need to look at it. If you have something, Susan,
Who do we send it to?
Directly to Melissa.
Okay.
You can CC me, but I don't need to review it.
Okay, great.
Anything else? Then I will see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the high school, those of you who won't be on Zoom. And feel free to sit at the table up front with those of us who don't mind the entire auditorium staring at us. And we will have, like I said, we will have a meeting at 6 o'clock in the high school on Wednesday night. And thank you so much. Have a good night.
Hi, everybody.
Night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Harry.